Up next on The Reveal.
Central shots fired. Have EMS rolling.
Like they shot a deer.
A Georgia father vows to change laws that would require police to render aid to a dying suspect.
They don't even turn him over. He fell on his face.
Did you think it was normal at the time?
No.
A therapist violates major ethical rules with her patients.
It got really bad for me, and I wanted to die.
But why is she still practicing?
He was taking pictures of my home.
He stalked her and her family for almost a decade, but the law wasn't on her side.
All I did was be nice, and now for 9 years I have lived in hell.
From our Midtown studios in Atlanta, The Reveal begins now with our multi-Emmy and National Mural Award-winning team of investigators.
Thanks for joining us. I'm Faith Abube.
And I'm Brendan Keefe. The controversy over officer-involved shootings usually focuses on whether the use of force was justified. But a Georgia father is now on a mission to answer another question. Why do some officers heroically try to save suspects they've shot, while others simply wait for an ambulance?
Shut the vehicle off, put your hands outside the window. I'm not going to ask you again. Hands up!
Less than 1 minute is all it took.
I'm going to put it...
Don't!
Accused of waving a gun at people, seconds later, he fires it.
Open your door.
As the teen runs away,
Let me see your hands!
the officer fires.
When the gunfire stops, some officers go above and beyond the call.
He's dead, dude. Oh, we still gotta try. Hold on him, hold on him, hold on him.
Pulling medic duty right after pulling the trigger.
The video showing as officers start CPR until medics arrive.
Need a tourniquet for his
I got one.
Including right here in Atlanta, where officers now carry tourniquets to save each other and the suspects they've just shot.
Hey, stay with me, stay with me.
He's breathing, he's breathing.
Sometimes it truly is above and beyond the call of duty, a call that some departments don't make and some officers don't answer.
Shots fired, shots fired. It is unclear how much, if any, aid is given to Franklin in the minutes following the shooting.
Is he alive?
You don't see any officers even bend in his direction until almost 2 full minutes later.
I haven't touched him yet.
Sometimes it's a life sentence versus a death sentence.
You don't belong here. You shouldn't be here.
Blake Peacock was shot by a sheriff's deputy in Bleckley County, Georgia.
They didn't render any aid whatsoever after they shot him.
Central shots fired. Have EMS rolling.
Sheriff's deputies called for an ambulance within seconds.
Central shots fired. Have EMS rolling.
But then stood over Blake Peacock as he gasped for air, face down.
Like they shot a deer. They don't even turn him over. He fell on his face. They didn't care at that point.
They called EMS right away. They called for an ambulance. What should they have done next that they didn't do?
Now this is an injured human being. I think they should have tried to use any form of life-saving training that they had to save my son.
The second deputy rushed to his patrol car, not to get a trauma kit, but yellow police tape. While Blake was taking his last breaths, police were taping off the rural field without a single bystander in sight.
You knew EMS was on the way. Why didn't you try to save his life?
When the ambulance finally arrived, Blake still had a slight pulse, but it was too late. So Blake's parents sued the deputies for deliberate indifference.
The judge ruled that they have no obligation to render first aid.
Legally, officers fulfill all requirements to help the moment they call for an ambulance.
Central shots fired. Have EMS rolling.
We need to remember there's a heart on the other side of the badge that's having to use force, and it changes their lives forever.
Attorney and author Lance LaRusso represents police officers involved in shootings.
It's the good people behind the badges that are trying to give aid when they can.
Need a tourniquet for his
I got one.
But if you make that a law that they are required to, then we're going to get into these second guessing situations where the officer tactically wasn't able to, and they could be facing criminal liability. That's not appropriate.
Edwin Peacock.
Ed Peacock is now on a mission, starting with his hometown and the city council in Cochran, Georgia.
That there is currently no federal law or peace officer policy that requires any U.S. lawman to render any physical life-saving aid to an American citizen they shoot using deadly force.
Did you have any luck with the city council?
And right before Christmas, I think Blake and our family got a Christmas present. They actually changed their policies and procedures. Officers should immediately provide any necessary medical assistance to the subject to the degree to which they are trained. And I'm hoping that'll be the ripple in the pond. It'll go across the whole country. Y'all rest in peace.
Blake's dad is now taking the issue to the Georgia General Assembly, looking to legally require officers to provide first aid after a shooting. One state already does. Washington voters passed a referendum on the issue, Faith.
Let's take the Atlanta Police Department, for example. What are their policies?
Yeah, they actually do require, APD requires in their standard operating procedures to provide medical aid in a timely manner after a use of deadly force, when it's safe for officers to do so. But it really depends on the culture of each police department.
Coming up on The Reveal.
I was dependent on her.
A mental health professional accused of questionable relationships with her clients.
She had me do an assignment where I had to write out everyone I had ever had a crush on. Then she asked me basically why wasn't her name on there.
A Reveal investigation has uncovered serious accusations against a Georgia therapist. She's accused of having inappropriate relationships with her clients. One accreditation organization found she violated major ethics rules, but we discovered more than a year later, the therapist is still practicing.
It's just you and the bike, and I don't know, I love that.
Competitive biking is more than just a passion for Crystal. It's therapy to stay balanced and her thoughts moving in the right direction.
It keeps me motivated, and it got me out of bed most days.
Focusing on the road instead of a toxic relationship with someone Crystal thought she could trust. She's asked us not to use her real name.
I mean, it got really bad for me, and I wanted to die.
Crystal is talking about Tiffany Leggett, her former therapist of 5 years. The two met when Crystal admitted herself into MAR, an addiction treatment center in Gwinnett County, Georgia. At the time, Crystal was getting treatment for alcoholism.
I just completely listened to her and trusted her and took what she said over like what I thought.
Over time, Leggett started asking Crystal to spend time outside of therapy sessions, inviting her into her home, trips out of state, and even sleeping in the same bed together. Did you think it was normal at the time?
No. Like, a part of me wanted to say no, but then I was dependent on her at that point. She basically told me that I owed my sobriety to her.
A dependency Crystal says the therapist used to control her, making it difficult to end the relationship. Text messages show the 39-year-old therapist sending pictures of herself in pajamas, lying in bed, and even writing, "Where the f*** have you been?" when Crystal didn't respond fast enough.
She had me do an assignment where I had to write out everyone I had ever had a crush on. Then she asked me specifically, like, basically why wasn't her name on there.
Did you think that was a weird question to ask?
Yeah, I was like mortified.
That's very inappropriate.
Heather Hayes is a licensed family therapist and a nationally known interventionist. She says state ethics rules forbid therapists from forming relationships with clients outside treatment because they can exploit clients to get what they want.
And if someone with that power differential comes to me and wants to have their own needs met in some way, that is, it's inappropriate. It can be harmful to the client. This is one of those things where you don't need to be practicing and you need to go get some help.
Legette's bosses agreed. According to this January 2019 email obtained by The Reveal, Mar's former executive director emailed Crystal writing, "Legette needs to be out of this field as quickly as possible," following her termination from Mar. A month later, the Georgia Addiction Counselors Association revoked her accreditation after it found that Legette violated major ethical codes and failed to ensure the safety and welfare of her clients. It's been about a year.
Yeah.
What's happened?
Nothing. She's still practicing in the state of Georgia.
Legette currently works part-time here at Purple Treatment, a recovery center in Lawrenceville. And up until last month, she also practiced here at Transformations Therapy of Atlanta. It's all legal because Legette has an active state license. Crystal Mar submitted complaints to the Georgia State Board, which licenses therapists, but that was more than a year ago, and it has yet to decide if it plans to take action.
What the f***? What the f***? Does anybody care at all about the welfare of clients in the mental health community?
Someone receives.
LaTrinda Tyler Johnson is the division director of the Professional Licensing Board at Georgia's Secretary of State's office.
Any complaint that comes in is taken seriously. If it's within the jurisdiction of the boards to investigate.
The director says she can't discuss ongoing investigations, but reiterates it takes time for the board to determine if action is warranted. The Reveal uncovered at least 17 other cases, which took the state more than a year to investigate.
Do you worry that the length of time that it is taking for the state to investigate, that potentially this person can harm someone else?
There is a concern. There always is a concern if there's the accusation, the allegation of wrongdoing.
Moving forward, while waiting to see if someone accused of harming her will face accountability for her actions.
I don't want her to do what she did to me, to anyone else, and I don't want it to happen again.
So have you heard at all from that therapist?
No, we called and emailed her multiple times. We reached out to her husband, who promised to relay our conversation, but we didn't hear back.
Andy, any update from the state board?
Nothing yet. The director told me that Crystal would be notified once a decision is made.
Up next on The Reveal.
He has a defense, and it's insanity.
A dangerous stalker admits to violating protection orders, exposing the disconnect between the court and police.
Is she going to have to end up dead in the back of a trunk before police, the courts, take this case seriously?
Welcome back to The Reveal. What do you do when the law isn't keeping you safe? For nearly a decade, a woman and her family had a dangerous stalker. It all began when he started leaving gifts and drawings on her doorstep.
But 9 years later, the stalker's dangerous intentions are revealed in confession letters he wrote to a judge. Our sister station in St. Louis investigated the disconnect between the court and police that put that family at risk.
In high school, Paula Frey had it all. Looks, friends, a future full of possibilities. 2 decades later,
I had a good job, we were comfortable, we were happy, and I was planning on going to my 20-year reunion.
a time to reconnect with Pattonville's class of 1990. A sea of smiling faces, many she remembered, and one she couldn't quite place.
I just said, "Hi, how are you?"
A fellow graduate who didn't leave much of an impression.
I really don't remember him from school.
But Brandon McCormick remembered her.
All I did was be nice. And now for 9 years, I have lived in hell.
Nearly a decade of unwanted attention after one brief encounter.
It was almost immediate. At one point, he stopped by the house. I was like, "What are you doing? Why are you here?"
Stalking her and her family.
He rides his bike past my house. His car, rollerblades, walks, stalks, lurks. And he was taking pictures of my home, and he had taken pictures of the girls.
Police reports requested by the I-Team show McCormick was diagnosed with schizophrenia and had stopped taking his medication. Letters written to the court by his own family expressed fear that McCormick could hurt himself and others. A St. Louis County judge granted Paula an order of protection in 2012, and she still has one to this day, but she says it hasn't stopped the stalking.
It's always, it won't stand up in court. He hasn't done anything to cause you harm.
We asked Maryland Heights Police why none of these incidents were enough to arrest McCormick.
So Paula wants to know, is she going to have to end up dead in the back of a trunk before police, the courts, take this case seriously?
We haven't seen anything in this particular case that would give us a reason to believe that he could become violent.
But the I-Team found there is evidence that McCormick could be a danger, and this evidence was already in the hands of the courts. Over the past 2 years, McCormick was writing dozens of letters to the judges overseeing Paula's protection orders. McCormick admits to hearing voices lurking outside Paula's home, and most shocking, claims to have molested his own young relatives.
To know that that's the actual monster you're dealing with is a little scary. It's a little scary.
Paula didn't know about the letters until an attorney requested her case file.
Why did the judge never tell Paula or tell the police about what was in these letters, or the fact they even existed?
All I can tell you is that the Supreme Court rules preclude judges from considering any communications from one side because they have to remain neutral.
The judges never read the letters, and neither did police.
I think it would have been nice to have an idea that this was continuing to the level that it was.
Police tell the I-Team the case will get a second look.
Do you plan on investigating some of the claims in these letters?
I think it'd be worthy of doing an investigation. You know.
Encouraged but not convinced, Paula fears McCormick will never be held accountable.
Anything that he does, he has a defense, and it's insanity.
Her life never truly her own.
I don't understand why, in the last 9 years, it has always been, he has to do something to physically harm me or my daughter for anyone to listen.
Since our investigation, McCormick was referred to the county's mental health court. He now wears an electronic monitoring bracelet and must appear in court every week to meet with a judge who's now overseeing his case. For The Reveal, I'm PJ Randawa.
Police Department.
If you have a news tip or a comment on one of our investigations, email us at thereveal@11alive.com.
Here on 11 Alive, one of the most acclaimed investigative units in the country takes on a new challenge, the 6 p.m. news. I'm Faith Abube. Sundays at 6, the 11 Alive investigators present a different kind of program. The Reveal will expose inequity and injustice. Immersive reporting that prompts change. Thanks for watching The Reveal, the nation's only weekly local investigative show.
And we'll see you next Sunday for The Reveal. If you have a news tip or a comment on one of our investigations, email us at thereveal@11alive.com.